This is BlueZoo Bird, a show dedicated to bird and small animal enthusiasts. Here's your host, Frank Reece.
Mark Hagen is our guest from Rolf C. Hagen Corp. Mark, I know you have been on the show in a long time, and I really appreciate you coming on. When you talk about having a bird when you're 12 years old, how long has your family and the company really been involved on the avian side of things?
Well, it all started with birdseed. In 1955, Rolf Hagen, our father, and we're three sons in the family now in the business. My father came over from Germany. He was 14 years old at the end of the war, and thanks to America, it ended when it did because they were starting to pull boys that age off the farms, and he was in northern Germany and did his apprenticeship in Hamburg for an import-export company in the early 50s that was importing seeds from Canada and fish meal from Norway and selling it to companies like Vitakraft and Tetra Fish Food. And then my father came over to Canada and became an agent for those companies in North America, but more importantly in the first years, set up a little bit of a wholesale business of specialty bird seeds and sunflower seed back into Europe and sold from Manitoba, a province here in Canada, sold some crops of seeds over into Germany. It did well for a few years and guaranteed some pricing, and then all of a sudden there was a bad crop, and then you realized the risk in being a seed broker, but it laid the groundwork for us bringing in honey sticks and seed bells and from Hykro in Denmark and honey sticks from Vitakraft over from Germany in the 1950s, and so that was right off the start, right from the beginning. We were distributing seed sticks for birds, and when I got into the parrot breeding in the early 1980s, started to have an interest. Again, we were a major supplier of Canadian-bred budgerigars and cockatiels from some family-run bird breeding operations here in Quebec to Canadian pet shops all across Canada. And so we've gone through all those phases to now having this world-class parrot breeding facility. So I certainly thank my father for having the opportunity and doing something that I love, that I grew up with.
You know, there's a lot of talk between, seeds. Do you feed them human food? What is your stance on giving the bird good quality food, and what usually is it?
Well, there again, we've done it now for 30 years at our facility, feeding them a compounded, pelleted, formulated diet, which is a mixture of grains and stuff that they were eating before, mixed in with some vitamins and minerals, mixed in with some orange and banana oils. So it's really important that they get a complete diet. And people will relate to it this way. We're not throwing pieces of meat to our pet cats and then sprinkling vitamin and mineral powders over that. We've formulated a great vitamin supplement for birds. So those people that are feeding a cafeteria style, almost human leftover style diet of fruits and vegetables, and you can achieve a very complete diet that way for a bird. There's no doubt about it. As you dilute out the fat and all the heavy carbs and the seeds, you add all these other soft foods, and the birds have a riot with it. They make a huge mess, though. They throw this stuff all over the cage, and our philosophy is that food shouldn't be a toy. We sell all kinds of foraging toys where you can hide the extruded kibble inside. We have toys that get destroyed within a few days, longer-lasting toys that you can switch out in the cage after you clean them and switch them out, and of course the interaction of the bird and outside of the cage with the family and in its environment, of course with the windows closed and the wings clipped. But the point is that food has become too much of a toy for a lot of pet birds, and then they select out their favorite stuff. So we had to show that it was possible to feed birds just the same way we feed dogs and cats. We're one of the only facilities in the whole world that for 30 years now has exclusively fed a non-seed diet, exclusively fed our formulated Tropican, and we're very proud to say that we've got now 3 generations, and where the babies and their own babies have never seen a seed, and they're in perfect feathers. So we've balanced out the protein and the fat to the right ratio with the domestic caloric needs. These birds are not flying around anymore in the jungle. They're not flying around anymore in Australia. Their caloric needs, we've shown, are two-thirds less. They're using one-third the amount of calories in captivity than they do in the wild. So all of these theories of, well, you have to feed them a natural wild diet. No, they're not in the wild anymore. We have to face the reality. We're domesticating them. So these high-fat palm nuts and fig seeds and everything that they're eating in the wild, they're not good in captivity. There are too many calories in them. And then these budgies get fatty lipomas, or the parrots that get obesity. It's just the same problem we have with dogs sometimes, overfeeding certain things. And so we got to really be careful with those aspects, caloric needs, the right ratio of protein. But you see sometimes birds on that are eating a seed-based diet at a breeder or other as a base diet. Their feathers just don't look right, because feathers are made out of 20, let's say, Lego blocks, these amino acids, these proteins. And those 20 Lego blocks have to be at the right ratio. When you feed an extruded food that's made up of a multi-grain philosophy, you're actually feeding more of a variety of protein sources, more ratios of these important Lego blocks for each feather color than you do when they're selecting out only the sunflower seeds or only the millet seeds. So it was a great run that we had in proving this, and we had that feeling. It was part of my master's degree way back when in the 80s, and we continue to do the research after that, and we're very proud of what we've done at Harry.
Are you able then, if someone has a bird already, existing bird in their home or office, that a bird can be taught or weaned off a seed onto Tropican? Will that work?
Yes, and it works. It works by using an intermediary diet, a diet that has a high percentage of Tropican in it. So in our case, I hate to be commercial, but we call it Tropimix, and 1/3 of that diet is our kibble, our Tropican kibble. So and get them used to it. Let them finish that bowl completely, including all of the kibble, before you refeed them. You can add hot water to the kibble and mix it in with some of the other nuts and fruits that are in the Tropimix. The point is that the breeders are the ones that will eventually help with this whole process, because they're going to wean their baby birds onto a healthy diet. What I don't understand in aviculture with this whole bird breeding thing is how we could take birds that are basically being weaned and wean them onto these mixed cafeteria diets, these smorgasbord of different nuts and fruits and all kinds of things. And then we have an easier job weaning our birds. It takes a month or two, but they wean very well because they recognize the flavor of the kibble, of the round granules, because they've been raised on it. It's part of the hen feeding formula that they're getting. So there's a lost opportunity in aviculture to take cockatiels and wean them onto a kibble and not wean them onto sunflower seed and millet.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about someone getting a bird, one of the first questions they always seem to ask is, can I have more than one? And obviously you have to do your due diligence to find out what goes with who and who interacts best. But I guess there's nothing wrong with having 1, 2, or 3 birds, right?
Yeah, and often that's the case. Of course, with a mixed finch aviary, society finches and zebra finches, a few pairs of each, it's a beautiful thing. A nice large enclosure with some lights on it and some plants inside, and these little finches that also don't live as long as people may think. They're 4 or 5 years, 3 years, but they breed very easily in captivity. You can get some little wicker nests in that. So a mixed aviary is a beautiful thing to see and to sit beside and hear the singing. In the case of canaries, certainly a lot of people breed those as well as a couple, and or keep just the males for the singing. On the parrot side of it, there are behavioral issues with especially the larger species that need to be taken into consideration. I've visited a lot of people that have one of this and then ended up getting another species, another type, and everybody gets along in kind of a bird room, and they're all come out of their cages, and they kind of interact to a degree with each other, but there is kind of a little bit of a hierarchy. I have to admit, I'm not a behaviorist. I'm a nutritionist, and each individual bird is different, and how it then becomes sexually mature, and and some of them are monogamous in the wild, and the cockatoos are more, they don't necessarily mate for life, so they'll bond with almost anybody, but Amazons and macaws can be more of an individual, and will favor maybe one person in the family. So the best way is to read a lot of the information that is out there on behavior. Go to some of the seminars that are on behavior. Join up with a local bird club. Of course, there's information available, but on the websites of some of these groups. American Federation of Avicultural is a great source of information on the biology of birds. This is the U.S. National Bird Breeding Group, the AFA. They're having their conference this year in Connecticut, and the conference moves around in the United States, so keep an eye open when that, and they often have behaviorists, several different behaviorists speaking at that conference. Great time to if you really get into this, and they have their proceedings available on the internet after the conference, so you can for $10 get a disc with a lot of information on it from some of the famous parrot behaviorists.
Well, Mark, I knew when I started this show, BlueZoo Bird, that you were probably, if not number one, number 2 or 3 on my list, only because I didn't know who number 1 would be to come on the show. But when I ran into Orlando, I knew I had to get you on the show really quick because of your expertise. And I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for spending time. And I really wanted you to go through a little bit of the history so people know that what you're talking about, you know what you're talking about. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Frank, and good luck with BlueZoo Bird. We definitely appreciate your having that opportunity to us bird people to talk about our wonderful hobby. Thank you.
Anytime you know that. I'll talk to you later, Mark.
Thanks.
That is Mark Hagen from Rolf C. Hagen Corp., obviously some of the Hagen brothers, and just fantastic getting Mark on because he really knows what he's talking about, and he has a huge passion for it with the birds, the avians, and the company of Rolf C. Hagen. And what I like about it is that they have research. He's got 30-plus years of research for birds and the well-being of not only birds, the owners of the birds, and the industry as a whole. If you want to hear anybody on BlueZoo Bird, all you got to do is email the show. It goes the same with BlueZoo Reptile, with Exoterra, and BlueZoo Radio. I want to thank Mark Hagen for coming on. I'm sure we will get him on again in the not-too-distant future. Thanks for listening.